I'm Scott Lucas. This is today's EA Worldview on Syria. Is the insurgency now winning? 2 weeks ago, we asked on EA, is Assad winning? This was after the regime scored notable victories in the city of Homs. We concluded at the end of that analysis that no, the regime was not winning the war. At best, it was holding the line against defeat, because this was a very fragmented conflict in which it claimed some territory, but was unable to claim territory throughout much of the country. Over the past 48 hours, there's been a huge shift in the question. The mainstream media has noticed that there has been an insurgent offensive in the western part of Syria, in Latakia province. This is an offensive that could actually threaten, challenge pro-regime villages and towns and even cities along the coast. And then the drama which occurred on Monday night, that insurgents took an airbase called Menagh, one of the last remaining regime positions in Aleppo province in the north of the country. Helicopters, tanks, they were captured, dead soldiers filmed. This was a symbolic victory, but it was also a very real victory, which leads to 3 points. Point 1. So what exactly was won at Menagh Air Base? In part, this is a major psychological blow. Insurgents have been trying to take the airbase for 10 months. For 10 months, they have laid siege. They have, at some points, gotten inside the airbase, but they have never held it. That is now all changed. They now are in control of the facility. That psychological victory, however, has real military consequences. It will be much more difficult for the regime to reinforce, to supply. It will be much more difficult to move in supplies, troops, arms, ammunition. And that means the insurgents have a real prospect of laying siege to the Syrian city of Aleppo, the country's largest city, and of finally, after more than a year, taking large portions of it. Point 2. But who exactly won at Menagh Air Base? An interesting side question was the makeup of the brigades who finally moved into the airbase last night, expelling the last Assad troops. They were not under the umbrella of the Free Syrian Army, that so-called moderate coalition that has been backed by the US and by the West. Instead, some of these brigades were Islamist. Some of these brigades were actually foreign brigades, notably the Islamic State of Iraq. This led some observers to say that jihadist militants are now taking over Syria. Really? No. Phrases like jihadist militants take us away from the important point here. And that is, while these brigades could move in and take over the airbase, and while they were not the Free Syrian Army, they still have to find some way of coordinating, working together, and they have to do so with Syrians inside the country. Some of those Syrians are fighters. A lot of those Syrians are civilians. So using the phrase jihadist militants doesn't actually advance us in terms of, are the insurgents winning? Which leads us to that third question. Are they? Have they really turned the corner in the conflict? No. This is not an initial question of are insurgents winning, as much as has Assad lost? What Menagh probably represents, and indeed the wider siege of Aleppo, is that the chances that the president can reunite Syria are gone. This will no longer be one country, at least under his regime. Whether Syria can be one country again, reuniting the north with Damascus and with the south, that turns on whether the insurgents can now move on Aleppo, Syria's largest city. But saying that they can do that is much easier than actually seeing it accomplished, because it has been difficult for the insurgents to move from the countryside, not only to take Aleppo, but other cities, Idlib, Deir ez-Zor. Moving in means that they may have to pursue almost a scorched earth policy in hand-to-hand fighting, close quarters combat in the cities, and that risks losing civilian support. So no, the insurgents are not winning. Jihadist militants are not winning. The Free Syrian Army is not winning. On the other hand, the Assad regime is definitely not winning. We go back to where we were 2 weeks ago. This is a fragmented conflict. The Battle of Menagh Air Base, resolved after 10 months, may reassemble some of those pieces, but only some of those pieces. I'm Scott Lucas. This has been EA Worldview for today.